Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Princess Janifa Jamaldin. So I'm going to discuss financial future markets. So financial future markets are derivative financial contracts that obligate parties to buy and sell an asset at a predetermined future date and price. So dito, ino-oblige niya ang participants, which is the seller and the buyer, na tumupad sa mapag-uusapan na date kung kailan isasagawa or gagawin yung delivery of goods. So, futures contracts. A futures contract is an agreement between a buyer and the seller in which the buyer agrees to take delivery of something at a specified price at the end of a designated period of time. And the seller agrees to make delivery of something at a specified price at the end of a designated period of time. So just like what I've said, ito yung agreement between the buyer and the seller. Both parties take responsibilities of the agreement. Parang responsibilidad nila kung ano yung napag-usapan nila na kung kailan ma-deliver yung item or product and kung magkano at kung kailan darating. So we have here futures price, the price at which the parties agree to transact in the future. So future price is yung napagkasunduan na price ng product in the future. Both have advantage and disadvantage kasi if ever bumaba yung price sa future, hindi mababago yung napagkasunduan nila na price since yun na yung fixed price na napagkasunduan. And then likewise naman, if you are the buyer, tapos bumaba yung price na napagkasunduan, let's say 100 yung original price na napagkasunduan ninyo. And then nalaman mo na throughout lumipas yung time and then lumaki yung price, naging 200 siya. But then, since na fix na yung price na napagkasunduan ninyo na 100 talaga yung magiging price pag bibilin mo yun sa future, hindi na siya ma-change. So, we have here settlement date or delivery date. This is the designated date at which the parties must transact. So, settlement date or delivery date is kung kailan mangyayari yung transaction. Bale, para siyang due date. Or the date that you will look forward kasi dun na magaganap yung transaction or the exchange of goods. And speaking of exchange of goods, we have here underlying it is the something or the product that the parties agree to exchange. So we have here futures versus forward contracts. A forward contract, just like a future contract, it is an agreement for the future delivery of something at a specified price at the end of a designated period of time. And while future contracts are standardized agreement as to the delivery date or month, the quality of the deliverable, and are traded on organized exchanges. So a forward contract is usually non-standardized because the term of each contract are negotiated individually between buyer and seller. Future contracts naman are marked to market at the end of each trading day. So what is the role of futures in financial markets? The futures market is an alternative market that investors can use to alter their risk exposure to an asset when new information is acquired. But which market, cash or futures, should the investor employ to alter a position quickly on the receipt of new information? The answer is simple. The one that most efficiently achieves the objective. The factors to consider are liquidity, transaction costs, taxes, and leverage advantages of the future contract. Next, so we have here the U.S. financial future markets. So in this section, we review the more important financial futures markets in the United States. So first is the stock index futures market. and then the single stock futures contracts, the narrow-based stock indexes. So the stock index future markets, it is the dollar value of a stock index futures contract is the product of the futures price and the contract's multiple. That is the to be able to get the dollar value of a stock index futures contract, we have to multiply the futures price and the multiple. And then the single stock futures contract, it is the single stock futures or equity futures in which the underlying is the stock of an individual company. Lastly, the narrow-based stock indexes. So futures exchanges have found that there are investors who want to take long and short positions in the futures market for a group of stocks and do so by paying for only one trade. Hence, only one brokerage commission is paid to trade the group of stocks. These futures contracts are referred to as narrow-based stock index futures. So we have here the interest rate futures markets. So first is the euro dollar futures. So euro dollar futures is the contract represents a commitment to pay or receive a quarterly interest payment determined by the level of 3-month labor. It is the dollar amount paid is based on a notional principal of 1 million on the settlement date. So next we have the Treasury bill futures. So Treasury bill futures is the bill future contract which is traded on the international monetary market. And then the funds federal funds or uh, federal funds futures contract. So using its three tools of monetary policy, open market operations receive requirements and discount rate. The Federal Reserve influences the demand for and supply of balances that banks hold at Federal Reserve banks. By doing so, this alters the federal funds rate, which ultimately influences other short-term and long-term interest rates. So next is the Treasury bond futures. Treasury bond futures is the underlying for a Treasury bond futures contract by par value of a hypothetical coupon bond. So the delivery process for the Treasury bond futures contract make the contract interesting. At the settlement date, the seller of a futures contract is required to deliver to the buyer. So lastly, we have the Treasury note futures. So Treasury note futures is for the 5-year Treasury note futures contract, the underlying par value of a notion coupon U.S. Treasury note that satisfies the following condition. Number 1 is an original maturity of not more than 5 years and 3 months. Number 2, a remaining maturity no greater than 5 years and 3 months. And lastly, a remaining maturity not less than 4 years and 2 months. So here is the Treasury bond futures. In order to get the invoice price, you have to multiply contract size, future contract settlement price, and the conversion factor. So now, let us move on to the General Accounting Office study in financial derivatives. So derivatives serve an important function of the global financial marketplace, providing end users with opportunities to better manage financial risk associated with their business transactions. The rapid growth and increasing complexity of derivatives reflect both the increased demand from end users for better ways to manage their financial risk and the innovative capacity of the financial services industry to respond to market demands. So that's all, and thank you.